what the hell is going on?
Isn't that great news about the stock market going up, ever upwards?
No.
No, not really, no. Almost none of us benefit from that. And by the way, is there a single person that we've heard of that has not been accused of sexual misdeeds or shenanigans?
Negative.
I don't think there's a single one left. Nobody. David Attenborough, that's it. So, very bad news. Donald Trump has cancelled his visit to London to open the new US Embassy.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Which is a great shame. We were looking forward to welcoming you with open arms and raised fingers.
No!
That sort of thing. I was looking forward to it. And you know whose fault it is that the Orange Nightmare isn't going to come here and squeeze Mrs. M's hand? That's right, Obakarama. Yeah, that's him. He was from that period in ancient history when the leader of the free world didn't sit in bed at 6:30 in the evening stuffing Big Macs in his face and picking Twitter fights with former Miss Worlds. Can you remember back that far? Seems like another life, don't it? Donny said that it was Obakarama's fault that he's not coming to good old Britain land because Obama sold the US Embassy in Mayfair for peanuts. Weirdly, he put inverted commas around the word peanuts when he tweeted it. I still can't get past that. I mean, I know it's been a while now, but he speaks to the world through tweets. That's just so bizarre. Oh, he also isn't going to come here because the new embassy is in an off location. And you can't see McDonald's from one of its windows. So that's it, he's not coming. The man with his brain permanently in the off position doesn't want to go to an off location. Why should he? Not South London, not classy enough. Black cab drivers and Donald Trump will not go south of the river. Of course, this has got nothing to do with the fact that he wouldn't get the full state visit and meet the Queen and get driven around in a gold carriage, and he wouldn't be met with cheering fans whenever he went. All that pomp and ceremony means nothing to Donny. He doesn't care about being feted and applauded and hanging out with royalty. And he released a statement to that fact, which said, and I quote, so he doesn't want to come here because there would be scenes of him flashing his toothsome grin and waving to people who would be shouting things that you wouldn't want to see on the front of a baseball hat. But that makes him look like a needy baby, so he released a statement by which he sent out a message on Twitter, you know, like a 14-year-old. He said, "Reason I cancelled my trip to London is that I'm not a big fan of the Obama administration having sold perhaps the best located and finest embassy in London for, quotes, peanuts, only to build a new one in an off location for $1.2 billion. Bad deal, wanted me to cut ribbon, no." And stamped his tiny little feet. He's the President of the United States. Why is he refusing to cut the ribbon or even go to see the United States' newest embassy? Because he doesn't like the location? There aren't any golf courses nearby? And you know what? It's wrong on so many counts. It's not that Obama sold the embassy, because that was George W. Bush that gave it the okay.
Absolutely.
So what's it really about, Donny? Is it because we love you even less than the Americans do? You know his popularity rating in the US is lower than for any president in history ever. 37% approval rating. By the way, care to guess what his predecessor's approval rating is? Barack Obama. Since he left office, 63%. They're like yin and yang. Donny's on 37 and Obama's on 67, and even I can figure out that's 100%. But in this country, it's even worse. In Britain, Donald Trump is about as popular as dandruff. 77% of Britons dislike the chump. Even Darth Vader's got better numbers than that. Even the latest Star Wars film is better received. And guess who stuck his oar in?
I'm a nutcase.
Yep, Uncle Nige couldn't help himself. He said that concerns about the protest may have been the real reason for the visit's cancellation. I think, which, if you read between the lines, I think he's calling you a chicken, Donny. I don't think he's going to be taking your calls anymore, Nige. He's going to slam the phone down on you like he did Australia. And, of course, Bozo of the FO, he had to get involved as well.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
And guess who he blamed? I don't know how he is responsible for everything, but apparently it's all Jeremy Corbyn's fault. That seems to be the deal that the right-wingers have made with the right-wing press. If there's something that they don't like, it's bound to be Jeremy Corbyn's fault. And if it isn't Jezza, you can't pin it on his brown corduroy jacket, then it's the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. It's his fault. Boris is tweeting now. Oh, for crying out loud. Can't we leave that stuff to the kids? He says, this is no, he didn't. He said, the US is the biggest single investor in the UK. But is that true? The Qataris have bought everything that the Chinese haven't bought. Is there anything left for the US? Everything over 3 floors high in London has been bought by the Qataris. But he is our chief diplomat, so let's assume that he knows what he's talking about. Yeah, because, what about everything that he's ever done would lead you to believe that he has no idea what he's talking about. So Boris tweeted, the US is the biggest single investor in the UK, yet Khan and Corbyn seem determined to put this crucial relationship at risk. This is a quote from Boris Johnson, who clearly does not know himself very well. I'm going to send him a mirror in the post. He says, we will not allow US-UK relations to be engendered by some puffed-up, pompous popinjay in City Hall. And the prize for the most pompous, puffed-up use of language goes to the popinjay at the Foreign Office. Have you ever heard anything like it? Have you ever heard anything more pompous? Popinjay. Who even thinks that anymore? If Boris Johnson were puffed up anymore, he'd float away like a balloon. And first off, there's no such thing as a special relationship between us and the UK, or the US and the UK. Not us and the UK, the US and the UK.
Affirmative.
There's no special relationship. We just speak the same language, more or less. That's all. Oh, and that might have something to do with this as well. Language. I'll come to that in a minute. Not the language that Donald Trump allegedly used about other countries.
Disgusting.
Not that language. There's no special relationship. What on earth would lead you to believe that there's a special relationship? Point to the thing that looks like a special relationship. We've only just finished paying them back for the Second World War. And there's no special relationship in Donald Trump's life except for the one he has with the magnificent orange animal he sees in the bathroom mirror. He's just finished his full medical, by the way. And the physician released a report which said, never seen anything like it. He is apparently 100% orange. Apart from his eyes, he doesn't do his eyes. I've got no idea why. He's got white eyes where he stops applying the makeup around his eyes. So there, what his actual colour is, which is bright white, almost as white as his bleached blonde teeth. But the rest of his face is, I've got no idea. It looks like Cheeto dust. He doesn't care about anyone or anything but himself. There's no special relationship. If you prostrate yourself in front of him and tell him how huge and enormous and tremendous he is, then he won't throw you under a bus today. But you'll have to go through that every day for the rest of your life. He's like a flattery addict. That's why he keeps going to those rallies in the dingling states, so he can feed on their cheers. I mean, here's how special is our relationship. Trump's already gone to Saudi Arabia, Israel, France, Poland, Germany, Japan, South Korea, and China. 8 countries were more important to him than us. And the reason is probably not because he is loved in those places. It's because he doesn't understand it when they insult him in any language other than English. See? Language. He's not coming here because he sees what we say to him on Twitter. If it's in French, you can't read it. And that's not just me saying that. Tom Tugendhat, the chairman of the Commons Foreign Affairs Committee, he suggested that Trump was more aware of opposition in the UK than in other countries he'd visited because it was expressed in English. We should express it in the international language of fingers. Like this. There you are. Take that. Tom Tugendhat, the chairman of the Commons Foreign Affairs Committee, said, "If I'm honest, it more reflects the fact that other people criticise in French, Italian, Korean and other languages, and we criticise in English, and it's much easier for him to read English." He is a caution, ain't he? But, and in English, of course, Donald Trump knows the best words.
I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words.
Yeah. And by the way, this Tom Tugendhat, the chairman of the Commons Foreign Affairs Committee, who agrees with my thought that it's one of the reasons that he ain't coming here is because he can read the insults that we write in English. What kind of a pinko liberal lefty socialist is Tom Tugendhat when he's at home, I hear you ask? Well, he's the Lieutenant Colonel Thomas George John Tugendhat, MBE, the Conservative member for Very Tory Tunbridge. That's who. And an actual lefty former Labour leader, Ed Miliband, said Trump's reasons for not coming was because nobody wanted him to come. And that Donald Trump had got the message. That's what Ed Miliband said.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
And Liberal Democrat Foreign Affairs spokesperson Joe Swinson said the news that Trump has thrown his toys out of the pram and cancelled his trip to the UK will be welcomed by all of us who reject his abhorrent views. Abhorrent? Wow, that's pretty strong stuff. Any advance on abhorrent?
Yes.
Labour MP Stephen Doughty said on Twitter, reason Donald Trump cancelled trip to London is that we're not a big fan of his racist, sexist, unthinking behaviour. He said big protests if he came to cut the ribbon. He wanted the red carpet treatment and cheering crowds. No.
Oh, shut up!
Apparently no new date has been offered for Donny's trip to Britain, raising the prospect of a major diplomatic snub. Mrs M's going to have to go over there and hold his hand down another one of those scary ramps. Thank you, Tina. One source said that Trump, who was expected to officially open this US embassy, that cube, that, well, I don't know, I was going to say unlovely looking, but it's, compared to whatever, all the stuff that's around it, I mean, those hideous blocks of executive flatlets that are by the river, they are just flat out awful. If you ever tire of looking at beautiful things, then give your eyes a rest and go and look at something truly hideous, which are those blocks of executive flatlets that are right by the river, by the new American embassy. And to make them look a little less hideous, they put strips of blue and red and yellow on them. Blue and red and yellow.
Groovy.
Yeah, because that'll make them beautiful. Hideous. So the cube, compared to those things, the cube's not bad. But one senior source said that Trump ain't coming because he was unhappy about the arrangements and the scale of the visit. The second source said the lack of bells and whistles and royal involvement may have discouraged him. And this, by the way, despite Donald Trump telling Theresa May last month that he would come to Britain in the new year. Liar! No, that's not fair. It's not a lie, it's just fake news. So he's shunning us because he doesn't like the area his new embassy is in, or he won't come if the Queen doesn't pick him up from the airport, but he is going to Switzerland. On Tuesday, the White House confirmed that Ancient Orange is going to attend the World Economic Forum in the Swiss resort of Davos, which brings together the world's economic and political elites. Oh, I can only dream of being invited to a function with elites. And those elites, by the way, are going to try not to get pushed off stage by him as he barges his way to the front for a photo shoot.
Excuse me.
And by the way, we had a petition on the government's website that ran for about 6 months, had so many signatures to block Trump from coming to the UK. It became the second most signed petition in government website history. We love not loving you, Donny. It was behind the one for a second referendum if the winning vote was less than 60%. That was signed by 4,160,260 people. And it was debated in Parliament. And the government said?
No.
Yeah, despite it quite clearly being the will of the people. Here's Worthing. Hello, Sam.
Oh, hi, Nick.
Sam.
There's a whole firestorm on the American news networks. I've been following Fox News today.
Fox News! How do you watch Fox News here?
No, you can get a subscription. If
you mean you paid for it?
I do pay for it.
You pay for it?
American news is so, I don't know, it's so entertaining, I find it. And so, you know, because I work from home, usually I keep it on. So
yeah,
it's worth it. It's worth it.
How much? How much does it cost to rent Fox News?
You don't want to know. I got a special deal, so it cost me roughly about £30, roughly.
£30 for how long?
Oh, £30 a month I pay for.
A month?
Yeah, I don't just get that.
Money must mean nothing to you. £30 a month.
Well, you get a few more channels with it, if you know.
Like what? What do you get for £30 a month?
You get a few of the American sports channels as well.
American sports. Boring. I bet you don't watch any of them. Baseball and American football. It couldn't be more tedious. The only thing that's worse than that is ice hockey.
The news takes the cake. That's enough entertainment. But going on the subject, I mean, the reason why he doesn't want to come, even Fox News are not buying his excuse. He did say he loves heat, though, in that meeting he had. So maybe we can ask him to come during the summer.
Well, I tell you what, there's no heat in Switzerland, and he's going there at the end of this month. It's going to be freezing blooming cold.
Yeah, I think he knows the British public. You know, some might support, you know, his policies and that.
No, I very much doubt it. You know what? The people that do support Donald Trump's policies, they think that they're in the majority because they only ever speak to people like themselves. And just like in the referendum, these days, it's whoever shouts the loudest wins. You know, most normal people, they don't start screaming and bellowing about Donald Trump is... you know, he's the worst thing ever and he's just an absolute nightmare and blah, blah, blah. But the people who love him, they do. Every comment is at full volume. Therefore, they only hear people like themselves. Therefore, they think that everybody thinks like them.
There are people who love him, though. I've got friends who I don't know, they like his policies, but they don't like it when
they like his policies? What policies? He just agrees with everything that he heard last.
Well, I guess the whole American First thing just sounds great.
It sounds, exactly, yeah.
What I do say to them, look, it doesn't include you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, when he says Americans first, he's not talking about 100% of Americans. He's talking about the top 1%. He's talking about billionaires, absolutely. Millionaires, well, some of the richer ones. Other than that, no interest, zero.
Yeah. I'm quite surprised with Boris Johnson's statement. I don't think you gain respect by, you know...
That man is such he's our chief diplomat. How embarrassing is that? It's like we're competing with America to see who can become the most embarrassing country on earth.
I don't know who's more funny, Boris Johnson or Donald Trump.
Yeah, or the person that does both of their hair.
You're both entertaining. I think the ratings has just gone, you know, through the roof.
Actually, the one thing that Donald Trump did get right the other day when he said, you know, he's doing his usual, I think it was in one of his ding-a-ling rallies in one of the yeehaw states, and he said, you know, you did the usual thing about the fake media, the fake news. They better wish that I had won, like real mashing up of the tenses. They better wish that I had won. Because otherwise they'd be out of business. And there is some truth to that. Because the news organizations are making so much money. All those newspapers that he said are failing, like CNN, the failing CNN and the failing New York Times and the Washington Post and all these, they're doing better than they could ever have done over boring Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, definitely. I think they would have made massive losses if Hillary won. She's not entertaining.
Well, there's no entertainment value at all. Yeah, the Dead Tree print press would have continued its inexorable downward slide to dinosaur status. I mean, in this country, they were losing about more or less 10% of their readership every year for as long as I can remember. The Dead Tree press. I mean, the ones that do well, relatively well, are giving tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of copies away. That's how they bump up the numbers. They have to give them away.
Yeah, Nick, if you get a chance, you must read that book, Fire and Fury.
Well, coincidentally, I've just been gifted a copy by the excellent Zora Suleiman.
Oh, nice!
So I have an actual paper, something to touch and feel and squeeze and sniff.
Oh, okay. I haven't got the paper bit. I've just got the digital bit.
Oh, yeah. See, somebody sent me that on a PDF. I have no idea what that means. But I was going to read it on a screen, but there's nothing satisfactory about reading anything on a screen. I spend most of my life staring at a screen, and there's just nothing nice about it. It's true. It puts you on edge. This is why the kids are, it's one of the reasons why the kids are a huge disappointment these days. It's because they spend their entire life staring at a screen. And it makes you tense, and because there's no end to it. I've said this before. The beauty of a newspaper or a book is that you know when the end is. It's finite. You can feel where the end is. Whereas online, there is no end to the news. It just goes on. It's just like your Fox News. There is no end. It doesn't sign off for the night. It just continues to go over and over and around and around.
Yeah, 24/7.
Exactly.
I tell you what, even his strongest supporters have sort of left him on the sidelines today. Even on Fox News, they're saying maybe this is
really
strong.
Even they're backing away from him. Well, you know what? The Murdoch organisation, they always back the person they think is going to win. So at the point at which he might start looking like he's not going to win or stick around, then they'll immediately start backing somebody else. You know, that whole thing about it's the Sun what won it. Well, it's not really. It's the Sun what jumped on board the bandwagon that they thought was going to go past the winning tape first. Yeah, Sam, it's been a delight. Spend your money in better ways. I mean, you just set fire to it or throw it out the window would be a better idea. Thanks a lot, mate. Here's a call from the Edinburgh area. Gosh, that's vague. Hello, Shane.
Hello, I'm actually in the middle of Edinburgh, about half a mile from Princes Street.
Well, that does count as the Edinburgh area.
So be it. But I'm definitely in Edinburgh, in the Edinburgh, what's called the Edinburgh New Town, which is the Georgian New Town bit.
Oh, very nice, very posh.
It's lovely.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't say it was very posh. It's nice, though. It is lovely. I lived in Chelsea for 20 years, and I lived in Deptford prior to that for 10 years. So I'm actually a Londoner through and through.
Better not talk about the Deptford part.
Well, nothing wrong with Deptford. I didn't have any trouble there.
Well, it ain't Chelsea. But anyway, go on.
No, it's not. I think you could say I've lived in very diverse communities in London. Yeah. But no, this Donald Trump business, it is pathetic. Daily, there is something he says or tweets that shows a complete lack of any sort of intelligence at all. When he says he's highly educated, now it's, for example, Bill Clinton was highly educated. He was a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford.
Yeah. So was Einstein. He was highly educated, but he didn't go around telling everybody how educated he was.
No, he wasn't. But you see, Trump finds it necessary to say this because he says the most idiotic and stupid things. For example, the excuse for not coming here is totally implausible. I mean, how can you possibly... He knew what deal the Obama administration reached in selling the long lease on that land in Grosvenor Grosvenor Square.
Yeah.
He knew what that was when he initially agreed to come here. Now he's saying he doesn't like it and that's a reason for not coming here. This is idiotic and pathetic. I mean, this man is so bright, it's such acuity. I mean, I don't think a solitary university in this country would give him an interview, but in America, I suppose if he chucked enough money at the American universities, they probably took him.
Well, that's maybe the reason.
Frankly,
That's maybe the reason he started his own university. It would be the only one that would take him on.
well, I did look up earlier today where he went and how he changed university. But quite frankly, I don't believe the most failing university in this country would even interview him and consider him as a prospective undergraduate. I don't think he's smart. He says he's smart because he managed to evade paying tax. But just coming in on another point, Boris Johnson seems to... I'm told that Boris is highly intelligent with his degree from Oxford in classics. I don't have a degree from Oxford, I have a degree from the LSE, but I wouldn't dream of saying the things Boris Johnson does. For example, he referred to Jeremy Corbyn, just because he disagrees him, as a mugwump. I don't know what a mugwump is. I'm no fan of Jeremy Corbyn per se, but I don't know what a mugwump is. He's now said that Sadiq Khan is a pompous, puffed-up popinjay.
Yeah.
Now, quite frankly, I don't think by any stretch of the imagination you could regard Sadiq Khan as loquacious. He's a man of few words. He says what he wants to say. He delivers a message, but I don't think you would say, whereas Ken Livingstone was very loquacious, so was Boris Johnson. Sadiq Khan is a totally different type of personality. But to denigrate people just because they're on the opposite side to you politically by labelling them mugwumps or popinjays is actually rather inept. But for reasons that I don't understand, in this country, people seem to love Boris Johnson. Is it that we're now getting to a stage where we like sort of personality people that are regarded as funny? I don't find Boris Johnson amusing at all, and I think I've got a reasonably good sense of humour. But this is what we're now coming down to. The other thing you threw out, which I was quite interested in, was the special relationship. It's an absolute myth. Which I think is what you were driving at.
Driving at? I said it out loud. I wasn't driving it. I said it.
Yeah, it is. It's a myth. It's something that's worked up by, generally speaking, I've never heard a Labour politician or a Liberal Democrat do it, but it's worked, probably Blair, I suppose. We have to take him out of it because vote Labour for the best Conservative government you ever had. But basically, it's worked up by right-wing politicians to convey a sense of goodness, a sense of security, a sense of patriotism between the two countries. It is a complete and absolute myth. We speak the same language. After the war, J. Maynard Keynes went to America to seek, I believe, $8 billion. They gave him 4. So much for the special relationship. We were trying to recapitalise our country after the war and do good things in the post-war settlement. And our nearest and dearest and loveliest ally on the other side of the Atlantic couldn't even come up with money that was being argued by a rather brilliant economist.
I understand that, but why should they have given us the money?
No, they shouldn't. But if this special relationship exists, you would have expected them to have shown, put your money where your mouth is. We've got $4 billion.
Well, you don't have to argue with me. I'm telling you, there is no special relationship.
No,
by the way, Shane, has anybody ever called you loquacious?
I suppose they.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
You think I'm loquacious, do you, Nick?
I think you're tremendously loquacious.
I thought the whole idea of ringing up a telephone program was to be talkative.
Was to take over.
I could have come on here and giggled the whole time, but I don't think that would have been. I find the whole thing of Donald Trump embarrassing, nauseating. He is just using, referring to excreta hovels. It's the politest way I can put it. People that from countries that he thinks are inferior. The man is just a disaster. I mean, I find it embarrassing.
Okay, I get it. Thanks a lot, Shane. We'll give you your own show. If Steve Allen wants to take a holiday, we have a shoe-in. Alan says, I was looking forward to Trump's visit so I could get him to sign my copy of Fire and Fury. You know, that book. Yeah, I got a copy of it right here. Gaz says, is it just me thinking that every time Trump gets a slating from Fox News, he puts out racist opinions to shore up his base? I'm not sure that it's that much thought out. It just pops out of him. Like it pops out of a lot of people who aren't having everything they say noted down and then reported in the press. It's just that with him, I would imagine that he just says these things and has done his entire life. It's just that up to this point, he hasn't had to put a lid on anything because he throws out a lot of money, and the money keeps people loyal and quiet. But there's no amount of money that you can throw at the press to keep them loyal and quiet. Pat says, and this is probably one of the reasons why he likes cozying up to dictators so much, because he likes the way that dictators can control the press with great vengeance. One of the reasons why he throws his toys out the pram every time somebody writes something bad about him. He can't believe it. He can't just have them killed. Pat says, Donny has had a checkup today. The relevant question is, has the doctor checked out his mental state in the light of recent events? He seems to be unravelling fast. What's really bizarre about that statement that he released a little while ago, when people, psychiatrists were evaluating his mental condition and saying that we have some cause for alarm.
Warning! Warning!
Yeah, the president might be out of his mind. And they were taking a professional risk in doing that, because you're not supposed to psychoanalyze somebody from afar. You're not supposed to evaluate somebody mentally without having a direct contact with them, as part of their code of ethics. But a group of them got together and said, oh, to hell with this. This is a guy who could launch all-out thermonuclear war. We can't not say something. So they said, yeah. And he released a statement saying, I am not only I'm not only stable, but I'm a very stable genius. Because, that's what a stable person would say. It's amazing. Every day it's something new. Thank you, Donny. Thank you for being you. He did have a checkup today, and as I mentioned last week, if you didn't get around to doing it, I want you to get up out of your chair and go to the window and throw it open and say, Alexa, show me a picture of Donald Trump's personal physician. And you'll get some indication as to why he keeps getting a clean bill of health. Go on, I double dare you. Even if you've seen a picture of Donald Trump's personal physician, go and look at it again. So yeah, he went and had a checkup. Oh, by the way, if you take nothing else from this program, this is very important advice. And this is something to remember for the rest of your life. Never shake hands with a proctologist. Just remember that. A lawyer for... see, this is an old story that's fake news, that he's previously denied. It wasn't me. I had nothing to do with me. It was like that when I got here. A lawyer for President... I wonder if the lawyer looks anything like his doctor. Maybe it's the same bloke. A lawyer for President Donald Trump arranged a $130,000 payment to a former adult film star a month before the 2016 election as part of an agreement that precluded her from publicly discussing an alleged sexual encounter with Donald Trump, according to people familiar with the matter. Oh, when it rains, it pours, doesn't it, Donny? Michael Cohen, who spent nearly a decade as a top attorney at the Trump Organization. Blimey, that must have been a 24-hour-a-day job. Didn't Donald Trump, isn't he responsible for something like 3,000 lawsuits? It's just like thousands and thousands and thousands. Everybody gets sued. Or is threatened with being sued. Has he actually gone through with his threat to sue the women who have accused him of sexual indiscretion?
No,
I didn't think so. Michael Cohen, who spent nearly a decade as a top attorney at the Trump Organization, arranged payment to the woman, Stephanie Clifford, in October 2016 after her lawyer negotiated the non-disclosure agreement with Mr. Cohen. These people familiar with the matter said. Mrs. Clifford, whose stage name is Stormy Daniels, as in raining. She's privately alleged that the encounter with Mr. Trump took place after they met at a July 2006 celebrity golf tournament in Lake Tahoe. These people said, who are in the know, apparently. So this happened in July 2006. Trump married Melania in 2005.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh. Mr. Trump faced other allegations during his campaign of inappropriate behavior with women and vehemently denied them.
I will be so great to women. I cherish women.
Two women. Two. That word two in there just jars on me every time I hear it. I will be so great to women. This payment was allegedly made around the same time as that Access Hollywood tape surfaced, in which Trump made a comment about grabbing women by the...
Disgusting.
Exactly. Sexual harassment and assault allegations against Trump from more than a dozen women surfaced during the campaign, and again during the rise of the Me Too movement. Donald Trump has repeatedly denied the allegations, and a White House official said that their position is the women are lying. They're lying liars. Liar! I don't know. Who do you want to believe? Let's have... oh, she's not ready yet. I'll do some texts and emails and such. James says if we... this is on another topic. If we have another referendum, says James, and it's leave, will we have to keep having a referendum until the Remains win? Yeah. I mean, as much as they say that it's the people who wanted to remain who just keep complaining and complaining and complaining. Can you imagine how much they'd be complaining if Remain had actually won? Oh, God, you'd be able to hear it in space. Anton says you can watch Fox News on YouTube. Well, I could do that, but what about all the Pussycat and Puppy Dog videos? When would I get to watch them? Jer says, I finished the internet yesterday. Not worth the read. The ending is terrible and orange. Mike says, of course Trump is a stable genius, just like May is stable. That's right. That's what did it for the Tories. Just them repeating that phrase, strong and stable, over and over and over and over again. Parroting it. Parroting, that doesn't sound right. Is that right? Parroting it. I mean, the first time I heard it, I thought, oh, that's cute. Strong and stable, yeah, I get that. And then the second time I thought, oh no. Then it hasn't gone around. They've sent an email out and absolutely everybody has to say strong and stable, do they? And they just kept saying it and saying it and saying it and saying it. And the only thing that they interrupted it with was a coalition of chaos. And they just became like robots.
Correct.
A little bit robotic, Mrs. M.
Affirmative.
Yeah, Mrs. M is strong and stable. Yeah. Doreen says, I've never heard Mark Zuckerberg, the makers of Google, or Steve Jobs call themselves genius. Not even Professor Hawking has called himself a genius. So then what makes Trump so clever or a genius then? I've worked with some extremely smart and clever people in a world of science and medicine. If somebody called themselves genius in the office, we would all do a double take and call the people in white jackets. Well, I think everybody in science and medicine wears white jackets, don't they? Who would you call?
Hi, Nick.
Marianne.
So, this is what a news week for you. I bet you've had a right chuckle on your day.
Oh, it's been exhausting.
Like, daily. But, so I can't say a certain word on air, I know, but when he said he didn't want people from certain countries, well, why couldn't he have people from Norway instead? I don't think I spoke to some of my Norwegian friends who
they don't want to go
around me when that news broke. A Norwegian friend was with me, and she was like, well, we don't even want to be in Trump's America. And as well,
the Norwegian people are saying, don't bring us into this. In Norwegian.
Embarrassed. And also, they're like the most kind of socialist of all of the European countries. I mean, they couldn't be further away from Trump.
No. Well, he probably doesn't know that. He just thinks Norwegian, they'll be hurt.
Oh my God, the guy is just hilarious. And then the stormy news this evening. At least there was one contractor that he paid. The guy wouldn't even pay.
Yeah, we found one. Yeah, we found one contractor he actually did pay. Yes, she got paid in full and on time.
Paid his debt.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, he just made me chuckle. But one thing I don't think you mentioned, but I haven't been listening all evening. I'm sorry. Oprah, what do you think? I mean, America's turned into this like reality TV politics now.
Oprah. I mean, how about Pee Wee Herman? Or we could have Pee Wee Herman in the White House and Sooty and Sweep in number 10. This is getting ridiculous. Oprah. She's the woman who, I mean, I haven't watched any Oprah episode all the way through, but she's into all this, be at one with the universe and all that garbage.
And like, yes, we can.
Yeah.
Well, yes, we can before Obama said yes.
And preaching all of that wellness and self-actualization tripe, and then she'll give away a TV to every member of the audience, and they'll have some sort of religious fit right there on the spot, screaming and yelling and jumping up and down. But it's got nothing to do with being self-actualized. It's all about acquiring stuff with Oprah.
No, absolutely. But like her speech, which everyone was just raving about. I mean, it wasn't a terrible speech, but I don't know if you heard it. I couldn't find anything in that speech that I thought, wow, this is the leader of the free world. Like,
but it was at the end. It was the Golden Globes, wasn't it?
But there was nothing about that speech that made me think. Maybe I just completely missed the point when I heard it the next day, when I actually listened to the speech. But there was nothing about that speech that I thought was particularly magical or amazing enough to say this person who's completely unqualified to be president should be president.
Well,
I thought it was a good
that's
speech.
all relatively speaking now, isn't it? I mean, I've seen household pets who are more qualified to be the president of the United States of America than the current incumbent. I mean, they used to have a White House dog. Maybe they should give it the chance at the top job. It could keep Donald Trump as a pet.
So you had.
You'd have to keep him on a lead at all times.
Oh, shut up!
Yeah.
While serving him McDonald's, I don't know, but him and the pet will be arguing over who gets the cheeseburgers. But
I think he'd make a mess on the carpet in the Oval Office. He'd have to be kept in the kitchen or somewhere.
He's a germaphobe. You forget.
Oh yeah.
The dude who likes to eat in bed is also a germaphobe. He doesn't like anyone. Oh, he's just ridiculous.
No wonder Melania's put a lock on his door. That lock on his bedroom door, by the way, it's on the outside. Did you know that?
Oh, one other thing before I go, Nick. So, what do you think Melania gave your friend Farage? For Farage to come out of there going, second referendum.
I think he flicked him on the earlobe. I don't know. Maybe some breakfast beer. I've got no idea what's going on there, but I'll no doubt chat about that later.
Right.
All right, thanks a lot, Marianne.
Interesting evening. Bye.
The stuff that goes on, you wouldn't believe it. If I'd made it up, you'd think that's ridiculous. But it's actually the news now. And we're living through it. Ain't that great? I know I say this every now and again, but, in the future, historians will look back and think, what? And we're living through it. It's going to be history in the future, but it's real life right now. Isn't that fantastic?
No.
Oprah Winfrey to be the next president of the United States of America. That's what the Democrats are apparently hoping for. That's just too silly. They've got to come up with somebody better than that, like a politician, for instance. You can't just start handing it over from one celebrity to the next. I mean, who's next? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Affirmative.
He can't do it, apparently. Wasn't born in America. Paul says, I couldn't believe it this afternoon while listening to Ian Dale's programme talking about Trump and his racist behaviour. He went live to the White House where the Orange Man was going on about how great Martin Luther King and his life achievements was. You couldn't make him or it up, says Paul. Yeah, Martin Luther King. Just don't get Donald Trump to go to any specific country in Africa, or at least make absolutely sure that he doesn't try to pronounce Niger.
Warning!
Billy says the Donald is so supremely stable that we should bolt the stable door tight shut. And the bleep chief, about that Oprah Winfrey thing. I know it was at the Golden Globes, which is the not the Oscars ceremony. I think we're in awards season. That's what they call it. And they got it completely wrong. Totally 100% and completely wrong. So I've just finished watching The Feud, Bette and Joan. Have you seen that? Best thing on over Christmas by a country mile. And Jessica Lange should have got the Oscar for the best actress on a TV program, but it went to that skinny woman from Australia. What's her name? I bet my glamorous assistant knows. Who's that skinny woman from Australia?
No.
She was married to, that fella. Tom Cruise. She was married to Tom Cruise. The skinny woman from Australia.
Katie Holmes?
Is wrong. No, the other one. The other one that was married to Tom Cruise. One of the other people that Tom Cruise married, or went into a contractual obligation.
Nicole Kidman.
Is the right answer. Yeah. Nicole Kidman won it for Big Little Lies, which was also a tremendous television program. But Jessica Lange should have got it. She was robbed. Cork. Hello, Derek.
Hello. How are you?
I am great, mate.
For you?
Yes.
I've good news.
Yes.
Number one, you can actually watch Fox News Live on YouTube.
Yeah, that's not good news, Derek.
For the other caller.
Not good news. Not good news.
I know that.
Nothing good about that. They're disseminating misinformation.
But it's actually very interesting when you're watching it live and they're going on about Clinton.
Still.
When CNN... Yes, they are. They're going on about the Clinton Foundation, about how corrupt it is. And yes, they're still going on about it. And then you switch over to CNN on YouTube as well. They have it live as well.
Yeah.
And they're going on about, what he said about Haiti and African countries. So, yeah, it's very interesting. But, yeah, you can watch Fox and Friends, when you go home some morning or whatever.
Well, if you want to know what American policy is, just seconds before he announces it, just watch Fox News in their morning, and because that's how he forms his ideas.
But it's funny because it's usually when you watch Fox News, they kind of defend him, but they can't really defend him now. You know what I mean? They just
they'll find a way.
Totally.
They'll just they just change the subject. They'll distract us by a lot of nonsense about what Hillary Clinton did, and the bloomin' emails.
Boring.
Oh, for crying out loud! Stop going on about the emails. Nobody cares. She's not the president.
It's crazy. Yeah, and him going on about Obama, and it wasn't Obama who actually moved the embassy. It was George Bush.
George W. set that in motion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's it. So
who used to be
listening to you.
All right, thanks very much, Derek. It's George W. Bush was the previous low bar set for being the president, and Donald Trump limboed right under that. Slithered under it like a snake. Couldn't go any lower. Well, let's assume it couldn't go any lower. You know who should go up against Donald Trump? Not Oprah Winfrey. How about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Why not? That's the territory we're in right now. And similarly, in this country, it should be I don't know, Muffin the Mule. I've got no idea. Not Boris Johnson, because that would be ridiculous. Muffin the Mule would be a better idea than Boris Johnson. Puffed up Popinjay. How puffed up and how much of a Popinjay would you have to be to utter the phrase puffed up Popinjay, by the way? Roger says Michelle Obama gives an okay speech and people start to say run for president. Now Oprah gives a similar speech and guess what? Poor Loves must be desperate. They are desperate. The problem for the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, really, because Donald Trump ain't no Republican, is that nobody else is quite so newsworthy. He ain't a genius. I mean, despite the fact that he keeps telling us how bright and smart and intelligent that he is.
Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
I'm like a smart person. He didn't mean that he is similar to a smart person. The like is just inserted to give him time to think of what the next word is going to be, which means that by definition, he's not a smart person. Does that word like indicates that? But nobody gets as much news time. Nobody is as great with the media. There's no bigger show in town. So the Democrats, it'll be... The press has got a lot to answer for, because in the run-up to the presidential election, nobody else got any news time. It was just Donald Trump. And he did it so easily. He just swept in and basically took over. And the press just pointed, who had their cameras pointed at a multitude of different options, they just all swung in one direction and just kept it on him for months. And that's one of the reasons that he won, is because they gave him so much airtime. He was right about that. He didn't have to spend and spend and spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. He spent a lot of money, right enough, most of it coming from, the fossil fuel industry, which is why he's so keen on clean coal. There's no such thing. But he's keen on clean coal because they gave him hundreds of well, not hundreds, but millions and millions of dollars to run for the president. And the oil companies, and probably a lot of dodgy Russian money in there as well, which seems to be behind quite a lot of things, which happened at a similar time on both sides of the Atlantic. But there's nobody over there who is capable of getting the same kind of press attention. I mean, Oprah is famous right enough, but she wouldn't stand a chance next to the PR whirlwind that is Donald Trump. So that's the problem over there, is they can't compete with volume, so they're going to have to compete with argument. But I think that we're in a different place now, and it's happening on this side of the pond as well. We seem to be not only turning our backs on the EU, but also turning our back on the European way of doing things, and we seem to be jumping both feet into Donald Trump's territory. I mean, Boris Johnson, his every utterance sounds a Trumpist now. Ron says that Hillary won the election last year. What on earth would we be talking about now? Yeah, I've got no idea. It's hard to think what we used to be talking about before the EU referendum, because nobody was talking about the EU before that, except for one lone voice in the dark.
I'm a nutcase.
Just him. He made a career. He keeps banging on about he dislikes career politicians. He is a career politician. Made a lot of money trying to dissemble an organisation that pays him a lot of money. Third worst voting record in the EU, apparently. And now they're stopping half of his money because of allegations that he did something with it that he shouldn't have ought to. Naughty, naughty. But I have no idea what we were talking about before the EU referendum, because it wasn't Europe. People weren't going around utterly dissatisfied with the European socialist experiment and banging on about unelected bureaucrats coming over here. None of that. I don't remember a single word from anybody about that. And American politics was not interesting to us in any way, shape, or form. But boy, has the world changed. Huge. Or rather, huge. Did you? One of the bits in that book, by the way, before we get off the subject of Donald Trump and women, which is going to dominate the news for a little while until he says something else, and then that will be top of the news. You know, Barack Obama went through 6 years, not 6, it was 8 years, and I can barely remember a single thing he said. I mean, almost nothing he said or did made any news over here at all. Can you remember anything that he did or said? that made the top of the news in this country. Donald Trump's been top of the news every single day since before he came into office. He's probably the most newsworthy person in history. I'm just pausing to think if that's actually true. And I immediately went, and I'm not comparing him in any way, shape or form. He is not like him, and I would never ever make that comparison, but the only other person that I could think of was Hitler. Think of anybody that's more newsworthy in the history of humankind than Donald Trump. I don't think there's a single person. Nobody could dominate the news like he does. Every single thing he says puts him right to the top of the news bulletins. You're amazing, Donny. But did you? But that part of the book. I mean, I haven't read the book yet. I will do that. But the bit about what he did to other people's wives, to other men's wives. Did you hear about that? Well, I'll get into that. I'll get into that in just 1 minute. Mark says, "Is Boris a Yank? Can't we get rid of him? Let's let them have him." Bozo the POTUS. He did get born there, didn't he? Was he born in Manhattan? So maybe he counts. They could just replace one with the other. You just paint him orange, nobody would know the difference. Francis says, "You need a qualification to be president. Bush, Trump, whoever shows up next." Whoever shows up next.
Absolutely.
They just pull somebody off the street. They say, "Do you know anything about the presidency?" And they say, "Well, I saw House of Cards on Netflix." They say, "Great, you're hired." So the bleep grabber-in-chief is still supported by white women, apparently. I mean, he was white women. He won with the white women during the election. Does that make sense, the way I said that? If you take the demographic of white women, more of them voted for Donald Trump than didn't. Amazing. Particularly as they had another white woman to vote for. Why won't white women vote for other white women, especially if the man competing with her is a self-confessed sex assaulter? Don't you find that bizarre? Now, according to this new book, Fire and Fury, the president said that sleeping with friends' wives made life worth living. Oh, he is such a slimeball. he's like another level. Sleeping with friends' wives made life worth living. And this is how he used to do it. Maybe he still does it like this. I mean, 70-year-old men don't change, do they? He described an elaborate ruse involving Donald Trump telling a wife that her husband was not what she thought he was. And then he invited the husband to his office. And then he would reportedly engage in constant sexual banter with the husband while the wife listened on speakerphone. So he called the wife up and said, "I'm going to get your husband in. Listen to this." And then the moment the guy comes in, he starts, talking about sensual interface.
Disgusting.
And as the wife listens on the speakerphone, he'll say things like, "Do you still like having sex with your wife?" You know, two men joshing together. And then he would say, according to the author of that book, Trump would say, "I have girls coming in from Los Angeles at 3 o'clock. We can go upstairs and have a great time, I promise." With the wife listening on the phone. And then, the inevitable would happen. And the man would say something that he shouldn't utter, and the wife would become upset, and then that would leave the field clear for Donny to move right in there. Unless you know otherwise, in which case you can correct me.
I cherish women.
Mm-hmm. Ron says, "Thatcher made the news a lot when I were a lad." Yeah, yes, she did. But not in other countries. Not much. And it wasn't on a daily basis. She didn't dominate the news like Donny do. Nobody does. Nobody has ever dominated the news like him. Churchill didn't dominate the news like him. I mean, I don't know that I can't be absolutely certain about that because I'm not old enough to know. But I very much doubt it. No president in history. So it'd have to be somebody other than the president. It'd have to be a celebrity. Who's the biggest celebrity in the world? Michael Jackson used to be the biggest celebrity in the world. Of course, he paid off some people for doing things that he was alleged to have done that he shouldn't have ought to. But apparently he gets a pass for that because of the excellence of his back catalogue. I can't think of any other reason. I mean, if he had been accused of doing those things today, do you think the people would still be saying that they were fans, or would they be running in the opposite direction? Curious, that. Of all of them, he's the one that seems to get a pass. Weird. Steve says a few years ago, a surgeon burning their initials into a patient's liver would have been a massive story. Now it's not, due to the relentless madness coming out of the White House. Yeah, that seems a bit bizarre. The surgeon apparently said that he did it. He burnt his initial. He branded the inside of a patient in order to relieve the tension in the operating theatre. That was his reasoning. Dude, just put on classic FM. That'll release the tension in the operating theatre. It's very calming.
Groovy.
And he still gets to work, doesn't he? They didn't strike him off or anything like that. You can brand a patient now, and it's perfectly fine. You can stick your initials on their insides. Well, I suppose we're so desperate we can't afford to lose any doctors. Did you hear the latest thing? If you want to get treated on the NHS in this country, you've got to go to France. I might get to that later. Joan says JR and Bobby Ewing used to be in the news a lot. Oh, yeah, that's right. Who shot JR? I can't remember. I can remember being very excited about it at the time. Everybody was. Anyway, Joan says it was gripping, was Dallas, and then turned out to be a dream. Or maybe that's what Donnie will be. Yeah, a dream. Like a nightmare. No, it wasn't a dream. Somebody actually did shoot JR. Didn't they? Or did Bobby Ewing dream that too? I can see the face of the person that shot JR, but I can't remember what her name was. I do remember being disappointed that it wasn't, one of the major characters. That Pam didn't do it, or Swellen. Swellen should have shot JR multiple times, over and over again. Graham says Jerry Springer would make a good president, plus he's had political experience being the mayor of Cincinnati. Cincinnati. Well, I better got that right. Cincinnati. Yes, Jerry Springer would. In the current climate, I think Jerry Springer would be presidential material. Jerry Springer could be the president of the United States of America, and Jeremy Kyle could be the new prime minister. Ugh. Oh, I feel like I need a shower just mentioning that man's name. Sometimes I'll put on the television in the morning while I'm enjoying my breakfasting, and his rat-like features will come on my screen. Oh no! Yeah, and I feel like I want to heave the TV out the window. I want to go back to bed and curl up in a fetal position. The troglodytes on that show, where do they find them? That's actually a good question. Where the hell do they find all those people, those cave dwellers, those, I don't know, they just pull up rocks and there they are, crawling about in the undergrowth, as David Bellamy would have said. Where do they find them, those toothless morons that are on that show? And what on earth possesses them to go on that program, apart from money? And how much does it take to get them to show up? To sober up long enough to appear on that program? How much? Please don't tell me they're doing that for free. I mean, it does seem like they're being abused for our amusement, but let's hope that they are actually getting some money to spend on, I don't know, books. Yeah, they're spending it on books. Yeah, no doubt. Something improving. They're probably buying salad, I expect. Look at that switchboard. Holy macaroni. Is anybody remotely interested in anything I'm saying?
No.
Good grief. I know it's sit-back radio, but lean forward once in a while. JP says Springer was born in the UK, so he can't be he can't be the president. Oh, God, well, who's it going to be then? Who's going to be the president of the United States of America when Donald Trump is put behind bars? When we build a big, beautiful wall around Donald Trump?
I'm building a wall, okay? I'm building a wall. I'm building a wall, okay? I'm building a wall.
Yeah, once he's inside that wall, who's it going to be? It's whoever it is going to be less entertaining unless they are. I don't know. I mean, if we could dig Joan Rivers up and she could be the president of the United States of America, she would be funnier, but only just. Maybe that's it. We should have a dead person as the president of the United States next time around. It'd be quieter. Less chance of us going to war.
I'll bring us into war.
be safer. Come on, Joan, give it a go. Your country needs you. So after the news, I'll talk about something else, because obviously nobody's remotely interested in Donald Trump. That switchboard is just dead as a dodo. I think there's a lot of people who listen to this station who are bizarrely fans of Donald Trump, and they scurry away into a dark corner when anybody says something beastly about their hero. So, okay, I get the message. I'll talk about Nigel Farage.
He's a great guy. He's a good guy. He's a good person.
Yeah, because Nigel Farage has said something really unexpected and weird and bizarre. Something I never thought that I would hear coming out of Nigel Farage's mouth. So I'll get into that in a second. A phone call. Many phone calls. For me. Here is Liverpool. Hello, Lenny.
Hi, Nick.
Lenny.
Yeah, I actually, it's refreshing to get you back onto the Trump bandwagon, because you left him alone for a while, and I missed it, to be honest with you, because I can't stand the man. He just really winds me up, and I can't understand how he's getting away with this sexual harassment stuff as well now.
Because it's the money thing. The Republican Party are not going to come after him. They're not going to say boo to him as long as he keeps giving billionaires a tax cut and the stock market keeps going through the roof.
But I just can't understand how the man can get away with what he seems. Every time he opens his mouth, it just irritates. Well, he irritates me, but he just talks such rubbish, and he's the leader of the free world. I just can't believe how he's getting away with it, because the Americans must be really embarrassed. I spoke to an American person a while ago. In a party, and they were so embarrassed about what's coming out of the White House. You know, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the crap she comes out with, I mean, she just makes me laugh. Did you see CNN today where Pence was looking at Trump when he's talking, and it's like he's in love with him?
Exactly right. It's really, really bizarre. Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it?
Mr. Vice President, is there anything you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I just can't. And these people, what he said today, and then he said he didn't say it, and all this sexual harassment, he said it wasn't him. It was obviously him, but it's great to hear you back on the bandwagon, pulling to bits, Nick, because I've really missed it, All
right, thanks a lot.
I'm driving home from Blackpool, and I used to love listening to you pulling to bits. To be honest, I don't know how you're getting away with it without some kind of a lawsuit, but keep it up, because I can't stand the man. And the sooner he's impeached, Nick, honestly, I will be over the moon.
Yeah, all right. Deborah says, Oprah for president. No, too insubstantial. Would get lost in among the fire and the fury that is the Donald Trump PR whirlwind. You either need somebody who is louder than him, and good luck on finding that, or you need somebody who is his complete opposite, somebody who looks, stable by comparison. And I don't think Oprah Winfrey is it. All of that pseudo-psychological BS about, being your best person and let the universe into your heart and all that garbage. Oh, please. And then she says, and you're getting a new car, and you're getting a new car, and it's like Jesus Christ himself just walked into the studio, and people are having a religious fit. How about St John's Wood? Hello, Kitty.
Hello, Nick. Good evening.
Kitty.
Great show as ever. I decided to heed the call and pick up my phone and ring.
Yes.
Because I was one of those who was simply enjoying the show, and I thought, well, we can't have you not continue to rip on Trump. I thought I'd give you a story which you might enjoy. There's an American comedian called Bill Maher, and believe it or not, although you might know this anyway, Trump actually made good on a threat to sue Bill Maher because Maher had accused Trump, or not accused, he made fun of Trump and said that his mother must have been an orangutan.
Yes. Well, he put up a picture on his show of an orangutan and one of Donald Trump, and it was very difficult to tell the difference between one and the other.
Well, he sued He tended to sue Maher for $5 million, and the judge threw out the case. The other thing I wanted to say was a sort of good news today, that there might be hope that there are some people with integrity and principle left. America's ambassador to Panama resigned.
Really?
As a matter of honor today.
Wow.
Because of this S-hole story. Yes, exactly. He said he could no longer, he was told when he accepted the job, that if it ever became a case of being honor-bound not to be able to continue with the service, he would resign. And he said that day has come.
Wow.
So that was hopeful. And one final thing about a possible future candidate for presidency.
Yes.
Elizabeth Warren. Because she's one of the few who can actually answer back. She can cut him down to size. I mean, he's such an odious, loathsome man that...
well, don't sit on the fence, Kitty.
No, I can't, because he is beyond vile.
But I don't think that you can. I don't think you can meet that kind of invective from Donald Trump with reasoned argument. I just think it would get lost.
You are right. But I watched an interview on MSNBC with one lawyer who actually deposed Trump, and they were trying to find out from her how he might act were he to be deposed by Mueller and he'd have to testify. And she said, and I don't know what the case was, but it was before his presidency, obviously, that other lawyers were so intimidated by him that they began trembling and just shaking, and he would shout them down. And she was one of those very few ones who wasn't intimidated. So she persisted with the questioning, and then they showed an interview of him tearing her to bits and being just vicious about her because she had managed to shut him up on the questioning on the.
But he knows that all he has to do is to say something extraordinary that you can't disprove on the spot. Like, nobody knows anything about healthcare better than me. I know everything about healthcare better than anybody, and it's impossible to disprove that.
True.
And so he can just bluster through everything. And it's like taking a dagger to a cannon fight.
That's exactly the description. Because when he does get caught out, and I remember during the campaigns, at one interview, somebody did catch him out. I think it was Matt Lauer, with the question that he got wrong or he was contradicted, and then he suddenly goes into a verbal diarrhea.
Exactly. He just fills the space. He always does that. He just fills all the available time with verbiage, and nobody can get a word in edgeway. But that's the way that he used to run his television program. That's not the way that you're supposed to be the president.
Well, yes.
He does it with everybody. You remember when he met Vladimir Putin, rootin' tootin' shootin' Putin?
Oh, yes.
They were both sitting on one of those gold chairs, and Putin just sat there like the glowering gangster that he has portrayed, and Donald Trump just did not stop talking. And Putin is just sitting there stony-faced, presumably getting a translation of this just outpouring through his ear, saying absolutely nothing, as you would expect somebody of great power to do. And Donald Trump just couldn't bear to have silence or a period when he wasn't speaking. So he just filled the void with noise.
Yes. And one article I read commenting on that very encounter you just described so well is when he had nothing else to say, he just went for the handshake. And a completely pointless handshake because he shook his hand just 1 minute before.
He didn't try. He didn't try one of those yank shakes on Vladimir Putin, though, did he?
God, no. I think Putin would have done I've forgotten his name now. The Macron, because he would have shaken hard back. But
I think Putin would have thrown him over his shoulder and slammed him onto the ground.
Yes.
All right.
He's a man who's like, yes, absolutely enjoying the show.
All right, thanks, Kitty. By the way, you need to buy another. You need to buy another phone. That's terrible. The phone you're speaking to me on.
Oh dear God, I think I will.
Is that a landline?
It's a mobile, I'm afraid.
Mobile phone.
Oh no!
I hate them.
From this phone again.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Kitty.
Take care.
Bye. A bit too close to the microphone. A little bit. Ugh. Oh. Now I've got the concentrated spit of whoever has been speaking into this microphone all over my face. My beautiful face. Where is it? Where's my thing? I know it's here somewhere. It's gone. No! My squirt noise is gone. I'll find it. Don't you worry about that. Andy says, I find that all the Americans I've ever liked on closer examination turn out to be Canadian. Well, that's a little bit unfair. I mean, there's 360 million Americans. They're certainly not all bad. I spent quite a bit of time travelling around America, about just shy of a year, I suppose, in all, on various trips, going from coast to coast and spending a lot of time in the middle. I drove a car from New York to Arizona and then hitched around up through the cowboy states, Colorado and Wyoming and places like that, and out to Oregon, down to LA. Like, I've seen much of America. And the thing that struck me was how nice they all are. Way nicer than we are in this country. Way more open and friendly and welcoming, and you meet someone and instantly they'll invite you to stay over at their place. And when they say, we must meet up again, they actually mean it, as opposed to in this country where it's just an excuse to get rid of somebody. I like Americans. Individually. As a group, like all other people, they tend to make bad decisions every now and again. But, they were propelled into making them. I think the EU referendum is the same. It's curious that they happened both at the same time. There's a lot of strange and bizarre things that happened all at the same time. And the implication seems to be that dodgy Russian money was involved with all of these things, trying to foment discord outside of Russia in order to make Russia seem strong and stable by comparison. So far, great success. Daniel says, what about Hulk Hogan for president? I mean, I didn't really read. It was Gawker, wasn't it, that he paid to? I'm not sure putting a media organisation out of business is to be celebrated. Salford, hello, Gaz.
Hello there, Nick.
Hey up, Chuck.
Hi, buddy.
Gaz, are we on speakerphone?
Yes.
Oh my God, speakerphone?
There you go. Is that better?
A little bit better, yeah.
Yeah. First-time caller, long-term listener.
Good man.
You mentioned Hulk Hogan.
Are we still on speakerphone?
No, you're not.
Ah, you just pulled the speaker nearer to you.
No, I've just turned it off.
Oh, there it is. Now it sounds like you're speaking to me from in the present.
Oh, sorry about that. Hulk Hogan as president? No. Maybe not.
I would rather have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Well, maybe The Undertaker. No, that's awful, isn't it?
I'm not that familiar with American wrestling, but I don't know. Sounds like a good idea. Why not?
Why not? No, bit nervous. I don't know really where to start. I mean, have you read the report? Not the report. The comments that the United Nations made about Donald Trump.
Well, which ones? The one just lately? You mean the United Nations?
Lately, the ones that classed him as a racist. Basically.
Oh right. Well, there's hardly. That's not news, is it? I mean, that's not the first time he's been accused of that today.
No. Yeah. I just find it really, really upsetting. To be honest, I find it just completely off the wall, upsetting.
Well, maybe it's not that surprising to appeal to people's instincts. I mean, everybody. I know we like to think of ourselves as above all of that, but everybody is racist to a certain degree. Everybody feels discomforted by others that don't look, talk, and walk and squawk exactly like they do. It's human nature. It's part of the survival instinct. If somebody they look like strangers, then you are discomforted by their presence. That's how you survived when we all lived in caves. If somebody you didn't recognise came along, looked like they lived in a different cave, then you'd want to repel them with great force. And that's the same today. So it's not actually surprising that you appeal to that in people and you achieve enough success to put you over the line.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, some of the things he's actually saying, and I mean, you look at the was he in Camp David recently, and he was. He came across as bipartisan with the Democrats, and all of a sudden he's talked about his immigration policies on the wall and things of that nature, and all of a sudden this came out completely after him. On Fox News, saying that he's wrong, that he should be colluding with the Democrats. It's not collusion, is it?
Well, the far right wing of the Republican Party seems to think that anything that is in any way not part of their mindset is actually a betrayal.
That's right,
and so they just refuse to work with anybody that doesn't think precisely like they do, which is why Barack Obama had such difficulty getting anything substantive
through the House. I mean,
exactly, because they refused to work with him on anything.
Yeah, that's right. How many times was it shut down the government in the United States, in the US, when Barack Obama was in power? It was shut down pretty much. Was it about 4 or 5 times throughout this?
I'm not sure that's true. I don't know. I wasn't keeping count. But anyway, he could have done. He could have achieved a lot more than he did if the Republican Party had deigned to work with him on. The Republican Party even refused to work with him on things that they themselves wanted. That's how much they were intransigent towards him. But I'm sure it didn't have anything to do with him being black and all.
Well, but that's it. I mean, that's the lunacy of it all, because that just blows my head off, because it's like crazy.
All right, all right. The thing with the Republican Party, and I suppose by extension the Conservative Party as well, I mean, as much as they're alike, is that the only thing that they appear to be really absolutely agreed on is tax cuts for the rich. And as long as the stock market keeps going up, then that's just fine and dandy. The problem with the stock market going up is that almost nobody actually shares in that wealth. Steve says, I wish the Republican Party would run Condoleezza Rice for president in 2020. I'm an expat living in the USA. All I can say is it sure is going to be boring when Donnie is no longer the president. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit boring. If we all get out alive, it'll be a relief.
I'll bring us into war.
But it'll be a little bit boring when he's no longer in the White House. Catherine says, I'd like to see Judge Judy go up against Donald Trump. President Judge Judy sounds good too. Well, it sounds a lot better than President Donald Trump, which I still can't get used to. Still can't. It just doesn't sound right, does it? I mean, there's nothing presidential about him.
I can be more presidential than anybody.
Once again, I stand corrected. And it could be worse. Josie says, Nick, have you forgotten that Kanye West was threatening to run for president? Imagine the Kardashian person as the first lady. Well, that's not too much of a stretch from Melania. I mean, do you even know what she sounds like? Kanye West. That actually would be one worse. That would be another level of worseness. Is that a word?
No.
Worsosity. Donald Trump handing over to Kanye West. That ocean-going buffoon cannot be the leader of the free world. Please, no. Kanye West. I saw some of his... he's the fellow with the clothes, right? The clothes line, those ridiculous clothes that look like he pulled them off a tramp in an alleyway. You wouldn't believe how much those things cost. Like sweatshirts for like £1,000 because they got Kanye West's name on the inside. I'll wear your clothing line just as soon as I listen to your music. As in, never. And that music is in inverted commas. I'm very disappointed with the kids, by the way. I mean, really. What are you thinking of, kids? Get your faces out your phones. Stop listening to that stuff. So I'm going to talk... I was going to talk about what Nigel Farage said, but I don't want to put him on this late because he's box office. So I'll talk about it tomorrow. But this French hospital thing is just so bizarre. Did you hear about this? If you want to be treated immediately on the NHS, if you've got some sort of a problem that is ruining your life and the NHS has cancelled your operation along with 50,000 other poor people who've had their operations cancelled, and you have to sit for more than 6 days in accident and emergency with blood pouring out your nostrils, if that is your problem, then help is at hand. All you have to do is go to France, apparently. Just a short trip to Calais, and you will be treated toot sweet. So
the whole world's gone crazy.
Yes, the whole world has actually turned upside down and is in danger of bursting into flames and sinking. So, are we to believe now that Rupert Murdoch has switched sides? You know, you think that Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America.
You are going to love President Trump.
But actually, because he gets all of his ideas from Fox News, Rupert Murdoch is actually the president of the United States of America. He's probably the most important and influential person in America, Rupert Murdoch. And now the Wall Street Journal, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, has got this story about Donald Trump. I think that the tide may be turning, and I think that this Fire and Fury book by Michael Wolff, he might be right, because the author said that book is going to bring down the president. Well, on its own, maybe not, but it's built up a kind of a wave of embarrassment. It's becoming a bit difficult for people to stand next to him. Because it's just become embarrassing now. You know, the Republican Party is all about tax cuts for billionaires and throwing poor people off health insurance in order to pay it, because, you know, those poor people are less important as human beings than somebody who earns a lot of money. That is their actual mindset. There's billionaires who fund money into the party who actually said that if you earn £1 million a year, then you are 10 times more important as a human being than somebody who earns £100,000 a year. Never mind about actual real life poor people who have no value as human beings. That's the way they think. luck doesn't come into the equation with those people because they think that they have they've ascended to their position of wealth through their own innate genius. In a lot of cases it was just given to them by their parents, but they had the foresight to be born to those people. So they want to throw the poor off for healthcare, and in order to, it's like throwing a baby into the swimming pool. If it drowns, well, it wasn't that good a baby, and if it swims, then you've taught it a valuable lesson. That's the way they think. So that seems to be the only thing that they're interested in. But when it becomes embarrassing, then I think that they all start to think again. And I wonder if Rupert Murdoch is switching his allegiance, because he is, and make no doubt about it, make no mistake, he is a very sharp operator, and he does go with whoever's going to win and deserts the people who look like they're going to lose. So maybe that's it for Donny. Maybe this is the beginning of the end. It's been a delight. He'll be all right.
I make $400 million a year, so what difference does it make?
Yeah, I think he's probably lying about that too. Tressel says Jerry Springer for president is the most sensible thing I've heard this year. Maybe once Fox News starts to really turn its back on the President of the United States of America, and we'll know when it does because Donny will start tweeting his outrage that they're not buttering him up and like a Christmas turkey on a daily basis. He'll be furious. Once that happens, then I think that that's a sign that it's all over. Because one of Murdoch's sons is actually taking control of Fox News, isn't he? Is it Lackland or one of those, who has apparently expressed his embarrassment at some of the output of Fox News. So it may be all about to change. It might be Rupert Murdoch's son that does it for you, Donny.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
Don't do it. Washington, Tyne and Weir. Hello, Brian.
Hi, Nick. I've just been thinking, you know that Donald Trump likes to grab women in appropriate places?
Yes.
I think we should send our secret weapon over to give him a taste of his own medicine. We should send Vinnie Jones over to grab him.
Yeah, we can get Gaza on the phone and he can tell us what it's like.
Exactly. I think that would be great, wouldn't it? If on Fox News Live, Vinnie Jones does that to Donald Trump. It would be brilliant. The whole world would watch. That would be good.
Yes. Come up with a handful of nothing.
Exactly.
Well, you
Keep up the good show, Nick.
All right,
It's
thanks a lot,
brilliant.
Brian.
I
You
love
certainly have given us a lot to think about. Most of it awful.
Disgusting.
Langley. Oh, Dion.
Good evening, Nick.
Hey, Dion.
Yeah, not bad, yeah. You're on about you went hitchhiking in America.
Oh, yeah.
That's not what I was going to talk about, but was that before or after you watched the film Hitcher?
I was hitchhiking in, actually, in the very area at the very time that there was a serial killer who was going around murdering hitchers.
I think that was what the film was on about, wasn't it?
I don't know.
It was that bloke in it?
Rutger Hauer.
Rutger Hauer, yeah. I think I watched it. It was one of them sort of films that was going around. Yeah. But, yeah, I did a lot of hitching, but it was in Europe. But
people don't hitch anymore. When was the last time you saw anybody hitching? It just does not happen.
I was thinking about that nearly a decade ago.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Yeah, it's it was all the rage in the 1960s, I suppose, and in the 70s. And I was hitching in sort of 79 to 82, something like that. I mean, not continuously, but in those years. In America, I was hitching around Los Angeles, which is a big mistake.
Warning! Warning!
I mean, you didn't want to do that. You'd have to be nuts to do that, and that's exactly what I did.
Maybe people are too scared. I mean, I think I told you I went to live in Crete in 79, but I wanted to get back for my 21st, which was 1980, so I decided to walk back. But
what? Walk?
Yeah, it's through. Obviously, not. I had to get the ferry back to Piraeus. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I sort of put my thumb out. People don't tend to give you a lift out in that area, so I walked most of the way through Greece, Yugoslavia. Italy.
But you walked all that way?
Yeah, some people stop and give me a lift. Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I saw anybody hitching. Why is that? I mean, people don't have any money. They're just not going anywhere.
Rail fares are too expensive in this country.
Well, they are if you want to commute, yeah. But if you go off-peak, it can be pretty cheap, actually. I mean, you can get a trip from London to Liverpool to Birmingham for £5.
Yeah, I know, yeah, if you shop around. But you used to get a lot of students, didn't you? But they'd always have their sign out.
Yeah, I used to have a sign when I was going around America because, I wanted to assure people that I wasn't a murderer. And so I wrote English on my sign.
And not murderer.
And not murderer, no, that's right. Because that would be your first, that would be a rookie mistake to write murderer on your sign. If you were an actual murderer, yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote English on my sign, and the amount of people who stopped and said, well, I don't know where English is, but I'm going up the road a couple of miles. Do you want a lift?
Yeah, well, that's Americans for you. But there you go. Well, you got New England, but there you go.
Yes.
Yeah. But, about all the politics that have been going on the last couple of years, just at least, it would be great if Spitting Image reformed. They could have an absolute field day.
I don't know why they're not doing that. They wouldn't have to really employ writers. They just have to write it up verbatim.
Yeah. They've got the script there for them, haven't they?
I think the problem maybe is that you do need a lot of people to write a script like that. You can't just get away with having one person write the script, which is what most British comedies do. That's the mistake that they make, and was why that most of them aren't that funny. It's because there's one bloke sitting in a damp garret trying to come up with a whole season full of jokes, and you can just squeeze so much funny out of people, and then they just fall on their face and need to get to immediate hospital treatment.
You were saying about that last week or the week before. It is true, but I mean, the people that did the voiceovers, there's one of the ladies lives near me, but they could get it back. I mean, especially now with the technology, it'd be.
No, you want to stick with the old stuff. You don't want to digitalise it or anything like that. Just stick with the old stuff. That's just make the puppets and bring them back. The material is just you'd need you'd need to be on every day just to get through the material.
Yeah, I know. It'd be absolutely brilliant. Especially with our modern tellies, you could have the short fat man in widescreen full HD. you know what I mean. Kim Jong.
Oh, Lil Fat Kim. Yeah.
Kim Jong, whatever. Yeah, but it'd just be absolutely brilliant time to do it. I'm sure someone will take it on.
Yeah.
But there you go. Maybe I'm just living in the old days.
Fluck and Law, I think, were their names.
It was.
Maybe people don't want to bring them back because you don't want to make a mistake pronouncing their names.
No, not at all. And another thing, I mean, the PC correctness that we've got, I'm sure they can get over that. Just put it on BBC 3 or something. I don't know.
PC correctness?
Yeah. What we've got now, they'll probably say, we can't show that, it's not nice.
It seems bizarre that, that we seem to be pulling in opposite directions because society's become ruder. There's no doubt about that at all. People are expressing their inner bile in a way that there's never happened in human history. And the outpouring is just tremendous. If I had my squirt sound effect, which appears to have disappeared off my board here, I don't know where it's gone, I'd be playing it right now. But yeah, the bile that comes out of what's the so-called social media is just absolutely, you could drown in it. And yet, on the other hand, we're pulling in the other direction and insisting that nobody says anything that anybody would find upsetting in any way, shape or form. It's a weird dichotomy that we're living through at the moment.
Maybe the youngsters, they've been brought up with everything. You can't do this, you can't do that. So on social media, which is normally what younger people use, maybe they're getting out of their system or something because they can't play it in club. I don't know, that's just a theory of mine. I'm 59 this month.
59 this month? You made it.
And I'm still look...
59?
Pretty okay. Yeah. maybe that's because I'm single.
What, that you look pretty okay, or that you think you look pretty okay?
That I'll probably look okay.
Right.
Because I don't have someone waking me up snoring or anything, so I get a pretty good sleep.
Oh, I see. Right. Well, congratulations, Dion, on your sleeping arrangements.
Yeah, it's okay. I have a girlfriend, don't worry. But no, I don't know.
A real one, or...?
No, she's all right. No, I don't deflate her and put her in the bedside.
Right. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, but anyway, Spitting Image would be absolutely brilliant. With just the storylines. I'm going to have a look later, and they must have done Donald Trump at one time.
I don't remember it. No, I don't remember it.
But maybe they got a puppet stored in there, wherever they keep.
I don't think that Donald Trump was such a big noise in this. I know that they knew him in America a bit because he's been relatively famous since he used to hang out at Studio 54 with. I don't know whether he hung out with Andy Warhol, but he was certainly pictured in his orbit. So he's been relatively famous for a while now, but not over here. But now, of course, nobody is more famous than he is. Like nobody, even Madonna is not as famous as the Donald. Michael says, "I'm right. Donald Trump has to be the most talked about person in history. I don't think there's anybody else. And now he can die happy." You made it, Donald. It's just too strange. The most talked about person in history is Donald Trump, and he's not a very nice person.
Donald Trump is a very nice person.
Trump presidency is like a mad climber leading his nervous team up a vertical rock face with a sack full of frayed rope. Poor Melania must wake up every day wondering when she's going to see him flying past her before taking everyone below to their graves. Clinging onto the rock face with those beautifully manicured nails. Brentwood, hello, David.
Yeah, hi, Nick. I think you'd be grateful. I'm not going to debate Donald Trump with you, but I will say that I have a fear on social media, and I think Twitter is the least commercial form of social media. But it's not unusual that Trump utilises it because it's the mum media that everybody sort of. And I admit to it myself that I do say things on it which I later tend to regret.
Really?
Yes, I do.
Why do you do that then?
Well, because I troll people when I probably shouldn't, and I
naughty.
Yes, naughty. It's a social media platform where you're very detached. And you say things that you wouldn't probably do if you're in conversation with people. But
so when you're doing this, are you drunk at the time?
Well, sometimes.
Sometimes, right.
But not always. I just have very strong feelings politically, as you probably know, and I just sort of, I don't know. It's because you can reach people you would never reach in any other sphere.
So when you does it normally come in the form of personal insults? You stupid moron, like that.
I admit to having used intemperate language, and I regret that. But I try and avoid it whenever possible. I'm sort of modifying it of late.
I wonder if it's if people's tendency to do that on social media is. I mean, obviously it comes without consequence. If you yelled at somebody in the street, then you might get punched in the face. Same as with cars. Yes. I mean, you can scream and yell and honk your horn and flash your lights at somebody, and they probably won't smash your window in order to get at you, which is why people express themselves more clearly. But I wonder if it's our instinct to kill that actually informs our actions on social media, because you don't want to just debate somebody on social media. You want to actually smash them into the ground, don't you, in one blow?
Well, to a certain extent, but I think I can honestly say with all the sort of public figures I've trolled, they either block you, ignore you, and I've only had one person actually reply to me. I can honestly say that, and all the people I've trolled in public life.
Right. And who was that person that replied?
Well, he was a Labour MP. This is only recently, and I had great respect for him because he actually replied to me in some sort of reasonable format, and I sort of concurred with him on his point of view. But I mean, that is a rarity. Most people, you find people in public life are very thin-skinned. They like dishing it out, but they don't like taking it back.
Well, that's not just people in public life, David. That's just people. Nobody likes to be insulted.
No, it's not a question of insulting. They like to. You find that MPs will dish it out. They like to shout on social media, which they use an awful lot. And if they get any response, they just block you, which is fair enough. I don't blame them for that. But I just say, it's just a fact of life that they can dish it out, but they don't like it back. They are very thin-skinned.
But I just think I don't think that's politicians. I just think that's everybody. Everybody is thin-skinned. Nobody likes to be insulted or criticised or told that they're wrong.
No, I could take criticism. I respond to any criticism. I've already, acknowledged that. I just think a lot of these people, it's very noticeable. The politicians who are very, very shouting, I won't name them, on both sides of the political persuasion, they will block you if you respond to them. That's I find that to be a tendency. I mean, it's very. I think this is very interesting. Somebody will write a study of social media. I'm sure.
There's books and books and books. There's libraries worth writing on social media.
Well, yes. Well, I'm just amazed that Twitter is forever struggling financially, and people are writing it off. But it's the most used forum.
It's not. Facebook is way more popular than Twitter. But it's bizarre.
Yeah, but
Donald Trump, the world's most.
No, but Donald Trump doesn't use Facebook.
No, exactly.
Why does he use Twitter? Because he knows that's where he gets the most response from.
No. If he put his stuff on Facebook, then that's where people would be looking. But Facebook has way more way more users than Twitter. Way more.
Well, probably, but he gets far more coverage on Twitter. I mean, I think Twitter. They don't win commercially because they don't win on advertising, but as a form of social media for reaching people, it's beyond. I think it's way beyond Facebook.
No, I completely disagree. I think that the presidency was won on Facebook, and you could say that the EU referendum was won on Facebook as well, because that's where people get their actual news.
Well, I'm sorry, I disagree on that. No.
Well, I'll tell you what, David. Why don't you go on social media and tell me what a stupid moron I am, and I won't read it.
No. I think you're the most. You're the most. I shouldn't.
No, don't.
Big you up. You're. As much as I disagree with you politically, I think you're an excellent communicator on radio. The best there is, quite frankly.
Well, I think that you need to revisit that opinion, David, and tell me what you really think on Twitter.
No. That's my true belief. I'm sure you know that.
Well, just try to, next time you're gonna put something unpleasant, and just to, because I know that there's a thrill with trolling, and I get that there is an excitement from doing it, because you're doing something that you couldn't ordinarily do before Twitter came along. The only way that you could do this is to write an anonymous letter and post it to them. And there'd be no satisfaction with that, because you didn't know, first of all, that it was going to actually get there, apart from anything else. And it would take ages, and there was no way that they could get back to you to express their outrage. So this is a first in human history, what we have right now. And as usual with the things that are brand new, humankind thinks first, how can I use this for sex? Second, how can I use this in an aggressive way? And that's what it mostly is. Ordinary, decent, civilized human beings such as yourself, David, use social media in an unsocial way. There's nothing social about it, really. All
I would finally say is I'm deeply ashamed of my behaviour on Twitter, but I just keep coming back to it.
It's addictive. That's why.
It is addictive.
You're addicted to the hormones being squirted about your brain when
Yes.
you engage in that behaviour, which and it's all the pings and the bongs and the beeps and the all of that stuff when your phone goes off. All of that makes you addicted to your phone or your laptop or your PC or whatever it is. All of those bings and bongs and tweets and trings.
Quite agree.
Yeah, all of that. All right, be better, David. It's within you. Just let it out. Thanks a lot, mate. Back to Chertsey. Hey, Tony.
Hi there, Nick. Nick, I'd like to start off with an apology.
What, for the quality of your phone?
Isn't that any good? I'm using it as it should be. It's right up to my mouth.
Right.
No hands-free or anything like that.
You've read the instructions. Okay, well, then you need to buy yourself a new phone. Or hang out the window. Get to higher ground, Tony.
Oh, crikey. I've got it's charging at the moment, so that should all help to the signal.
It should do, yeah, you'd think.
Yeah. I can hear you okay, Nick.
Oh, well, that's all right then.
And you appear to be hearing me.
Yeah, no, I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, good. Good.
In fact, it does sound like you, but I can't be sure.
Right. Well, you never can you? It
No,
could be
exactly, yeah.
artificial intelligence.
Spooky.
Or
Yeah,
not,
you could be AI, baby.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so my apology then, Nick. Recently, I spoke to you and was extolling the virtues of a pub run by a chain to do with weather and cutlery, just round the corner from you, which I mistakenly called the Magnus Pike, which you then said, of course, he was this mad scientist from...
waving his arms around. Are you sure you were talking about that to me?
Yes. It was a couple of months ago now.
Oh, right, okay. Well, that's...
I've been wanting to apologise for the fake information since. And I've since found out that it's not, of course, Magnus Pike, it's Montague Pike.
Who's that?
And Montague Pike
Yes.
was a chap who was around at the turn of 19th to 20th century, who built a lot of cinemas in London. And that was one of them. You know, so it's a beautiful building, which still, sort of reflects the nice or the luxury of those cinemas.
There's a pub in the West End that used to be a cinema.
Yeah, it's just round the corner from you,
Where?
in Charing Cross Road.
And it's called the Montague Pike.
Yeah,
I never heard of it.
Oh, well, you don't drink in the pubs near you.
No, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I
Which pubs do you like?
flee at top speed. I don't really drink in pubs. Have you seen how much a pint is? A pint is £5. How can a pint be £5? That's two people having 2 pints each spend 20 quid.
Yeah.
That's insane. No, I don't. I try and avoid pubs. You know what?
Oh,
if
well,
I'm out, if the weather's nice and I'm out and about, I go into a supermarket and I buy 4 cans of ale
And then sit in your garden.
and then sit on a bench and watch the world go by.
Yeah. Yes, in a place where drinking outside isn't allowed, and look out for policemen who will throw your beer away and tell you to go away.
That's not the case in this country, is it? You can drink anywhere you bloody well like. Huh?
No, there's loads of places, outdoor public places,
Where?
that are designated. Well, in any parks, for a start.
What?
You'll find a little sign somewhere. Yeah, absolutely. You'll find a little sign that says outdoor drink or drinking is not allowed here.
I've never heard the like. Mind you, I've never read any of those signs, right enough, but I can't
No,
believe it. You're not allowed to drink in a park?
Yep, that sort of thing, yeah. Well, it is generally to do with causing problems as well as drinking.
Ah, right. But what if you're a middle-class person and you're taking and you're drinking on a picnic blanket?
Well, I think that's okay. I've done that lots of times.
Well, now, wait a minute. That's an outrage. You're not allowed to drink a can of beer that you bought in the supermarket as a working-class person, but you are allowed to drink a bottle of wine if you sit on a picnic blanket.
With glasses.
I can't believe... Well, what about plastics?
No.
I don't take glass on a picnic.
That's probably be okay, but not if the way Theresa May is going with prohibiting use of plastic. Mind you, I like the idea of aisles in supermarkets where there is no wrappings. I always go for things that aren't wrapped.
Well, they're cheaper, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you
Like
just
half
get
the
what
price.
you need. Yeah, and get what you need rather than what they want to give you. Which will all go bad within 5 milliseconds.
I mean, I did want to
straight away.
decry Mrs. M's attempts in this regard, but it's difficult to pick a hole in it, really. I mean, we do use way too much plastic, and we don't recycle nearly half as much as we should do. Not as much as, say, the Scandinavian countries, all those perfect people from Denmark and Norway who recycle so much that they have to import rubbish for something for their recycling plants to do.
Yeah, well, it is a good idea to turn it into something useful, like energy. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind about that. But I think the real problem with all of our use of consumables is that there's just too many of us.
Well, what are we going to do about that then? People should stop having personal interface with each other.
Disgusting.
Exactly.
Yes, it's a pity that it's made so pleasant.
If
Or that
people
it is
could
so
just
pleasant.
keep their hands to themselves for 5 minutes,
Yeah, everything would be solved.
well, it would
Yes.
be.
No.
Yeah, it would be.
Some of it would be solved.
This says Paul says the Montague Puke Pub.
Oh, no.
Well,
It's beautiful.
maybe that was a misprint. He
Oh,
says
good, hope so.
it used to be the Marquee. Well,
Oh, no,
that's
that's
not
in
just
Wardour Street.
yeah, exactly. That's not just around the corner from here. That's miles away.
No. It didn't used to be the Marquee. Definitely not. I was looking at that recently because a group that I knew, or one of the guys in this group, played there once, and we went up to see them play. And the Marquee, as I remember it now, was pretty small.
Yeah.
The dance floor was amazingly small, very black. And lots of.
Smelly
black,
and sweaty in there. Yeah, all those rock venues, they're all gone now. That rock
Yeah, that's
pub
right.
that used to be in Soho, that ain't there no more. The whatever that was called.
Garden?
There used to be a rockers pub in Soho. I can't remember what it's called now. But anyway, that's gone. That ain't no more. The 100 Club, is that there anymore? I don't think so.
I don't know.
The Marquee's gone. The Astoria has gone. There ain't nowhere to hear you rock and roll anymore.
Rock and roll!
Well, you can hear some good music at mainline stations.
I very much doubt that.
No, absolutely.
At mainline stations?
Yeah, at Waterloo. I was
What, coming
there
out the
this evening.
tannoy? Ed Bloomin' Sheeran music?
No, buskers.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Well, this guy is very good. He was doing some Don McLean numbers.
Oh, no.
Well, right.
My, Miss American Pie.
That's right. Well, he wasn't doing that one, but I asked him if he knew it.
Where did he drive his Chevy?
To the levee.
To the levee. It's exactly right. And what's a levee, by the way?
That's right. What would you say a levee is, Nick? You know what it is, don't you? It's one of those big earthy type things that have recently moved over there. But not exactly the same, but it is an earth bank to a river, I understand.
Right, why would you want to drive your Chevy there?
Hanging out, I think.
Oh, yeah, hanging out. Yeah, I remember hanging out. Hanging out at the people would just drive in America. They get a 6-pack of beer and then they just go on a drive just for to be amused. They'd be driving around in a car that's as long as a bus that gets about 5 miles to the gallon, and petrol would still be so cheap that it would virtually be free.
Well, that's right. Part of the problem. Do you still enjoy driving in any form?
Well, yes. I used to get a cab back from here.
Yeah.
And it was such a nervous experience because it was not a black cab. That would have been relatively comfortable. And I would have faith in the person behind the wheel. But in the cabs that I used to get from here, which were provided by a well-known company that is...
Oh, that one?
Works, no, not that one. The other one.
Oh, right. Oh, that's all right then.
I used to find the experience so nerve-wracking that I would just do
what you mean?
I would do a crossword
Somebody else,
on the
right,
way.
Somebody else doing the driving.
Yeah, badly. Like really badly,
right.
you know, tailgating cars and flashing them.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
and
Yeah,
I just used to
so close.
just used to drive me nuts. So I had to just do a crossword and not look out the window at all. Otherwise, I'd be so wound up when I got back to the flat, I wouldn't be able to sleep. So I enjoy, but then I switched and I drive myself now. So I enjoy that. And you know what? Driving around London at night, driving at 1 o'clock in the morning, that's a relative breeze until you get to certain areas of town when everybody seems to be berserk all the time. I know that there's a certain area that I arrive at, that I drive through, and I know that someone is going to do something really spectacularly stupid to endanger both of our lives. Every single time is the same. Just as every single time I drive home, there is at least 3 foxes that run in front of my car. It's like clockwork. Every single time. There must be millions of them out there.
Yeah. Well, they must be creatures of habit.
There's more foxes in certain areas. I see more foxes out at this time of night than I do human beings.
Well, I wouldn't say more than human beings, but you certainly do see a lot. I mean, I one time was going up to London and coming back at about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's sort of getting to Clapham Junction from Vauxhall and getting an early train. And I would often see foxes, and I remember once seeing a fox wait at a crossing for the green light. No, honestly, this was just near Vauxhall Station, just round the back there, and he did he or she did wait for the green light to cross. So they're not daft animals. I mean, we're only animals anyway.
Well,
slightly
you
bigger
speak
brain.
for yourself, mate. I've seen one here, like sauntering across Charing Cross Road, a fox.
Yeah.
So they're not just out there where the green is, like sleeping at the bottom of people's gardens. There is no green around here. So where on earth are they sleeping?
Well, I don't know. Not very privy to the way foxes sleep and so on. But I would imagine that area around there, with all the takeaway shops and so on, there's loads of good pickings for them.
I suppose so. Yeah.
Yeah. I often clear up bins sometimes. That you might find in
other people's
car parks or something like that. Yeah. I like the idea of a tidy world. But picking up rubbish.
What do you mean by you clean up other people's bins? What does that mean?
Well, sometimes you see lots of rubbish around a bin.
Yeah.
And it's either people are missing, or it might be foxes. And if it's early in the morning, it's likely to be foxes. Just rooting through. But
no, I think it's probably people. I think people see a bin and then they're walking by it, but not walking in a straight line, not quite near enough to put it in the bin. So they just hurl it towards it. And if it doesn't reach it, then it's near enough, and we can just go along our way and feel comfortable about. We're doing our bit to protect the environment.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's it's halfway there, I suppose.
Yeah, it's near enough for jazz. Exactly right.
Yeah.
All right, nice to talk to you, Tony. Cheers, mate. I have some actual real life information on this program. Can you believe that?
No.
My glamorous assistant has Googled it. Other search engines are available, but nobody uses them. The Montague Pike. This is the site of the former Marquee Club. So that person was right. That last caller needed to be corrected. The site of the former Marquee Club, which was closed in 1995, originally built as a cinema in 1911 by Montague Pike, his 16th and final cinema in Charing Cross Road. But I thought the Marquee Club was somewhere else. I thought the Marquee Club was up in one of those north-south streets in Soho. Dean, Greek, or the other one. Name I can never remember. Frith. Dean, Greek, or Frith. Isn't the Marquee Club up there? I bet my glamorous assistant knows.
Googling it very swiftly as we speak. Would if I said Wardour Street, would that be helpful?
Yeah, Wardour Street. Isn't the Marquee Club in Wardour Street? Or was that somewhere else?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, we've got no idea. Why are you asking us? Exactly. Well, maybe it was. It was probably in Charing Cross Road. If that's what Google says, Google is never wrong.
Correct.
Alex says that pub that I was trying to remember the name of in Soho is called the Intrepid Fox, and so does Milan says the Intrepid Fox as well. And everybody who expresses an opinion one way or the other has said it's the Intrepid Fox, you stupid moron. Yeah, that's right, Intrepid Fox. I don't know where people are playing their music anymore. Where do aspiring musicians get to wield their craft?
Rock and roll!
Because there just doesn't seem to be anywhere left for them to play anymore. It were grand when I were a lad. There was no end of live venues to see some intrepid rock and roller. Now even the Intrepid Fox is shut. I remember buying Time Out, and there would be 1,000 things to do on any given day, and I would just flip through to the back and see what was on TV, because that's what Londoners do. They spend a lot of money living in London, but they don't actually use London. But every now and again I'd force myself. Well, you've got to, haven't you? And so you go out and you see a band, but these days, where do people see bands? There's just nowhere left for them to play anymore, which makes you wonder, how do they make any money? Because the kids today, I know, they're a disappointment, but we're going to have to get past that. They think that anything that's on the internet is free, and absolutely and totally flat out refuse to pay for anything that can be found on the internet, because that's what they've grown up with. And so and they don't buy CDs no more, because that's what old people buy. Some of them buy vinyl, but not to actually play, just as things to have, because it's a hip thing to buy. Groovy. Along with flat whites and beards. So streaming is how the kids get their music, apart from stealing it off the internet. But nobody makes any money from streaming, apart from the people that are providing the stream service, right? I mean, they pay almost nothing at all to the people whose music they actually play. It's like 0.000000001 of a penny for each play. Nobody's making any money out of streaming except Ed Bloomin' Sheeran. So how do they... I think, talking about Don McLean, this will be the day the music dies. Because you can't make any money selling CDs anymore, because nobody's buying them. And so people are stuck with performing. And there's a lot of people who aren't performers. I mean, writing music is not akin to performing it on stage. Not everyone's Freddie Bloomin' Mercury, And even if they were, where are they going to play? Some old rocker... I mean, it must be really comforting to be an old rock and roller, sitting on a gigantic pile of money. So much that you can't even figure out how to spend it all.
Want to score some pot?
On anything. And looking at the struggling kids today with their... much of modern music's rubbish, but some of it's good. But they're just not making any money out of it. Not like, Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and the Ooh and all the AC/DC and all of that lot. Can't be done, because there's just no money in it anymore. The only people who are making any money these days is for, like, U2. And they're only making vast amounts of money because of their efficient tax regime. They've set themselves up like a bank. Boo! Exactly. Boo, Bongo. So I think that we're looking at the end of music, because why would you spend all of your time making music if you're not going to make any money out of it? You might as well just flip burgers for a living. And I believe that that's what the Intrepid Fox is now. I think it's a burger joint, isn't it? Because that's what London needs, another burger outlet. Chris says, I admit that Trump is not helping himself at all, but these left-wing protesters are putting this country's reputation and future prospects at severe risk. In capital letters. Like he's shouting at me. No, they're not. What nonsense. What, we've got to kowtow to the chump-in-chief? Otherwise we put our future prospects at severe risk? No. I think putting our faith in Donald Trump as a good friend, a loyal and trusted friend, it would be putting our prospects at severe risk. I think we want to keep him at arm's length. I think it would be better for us to have absolutely nothing to do with him whatsoever and to concentrate our efforts on cementing our relationship with our close personal friends in the EU. At least they won't chuck you under a bus just for the hell of it. Just ask everybody that has ever worked for Donald Trump, almost all of whom have recently been fired, about severe risks. This one says, give Mr. Trump a break. Well, finally, somebody's sticking up for Donald Trump. It only took 3 hours of this broadcast for somebody to say something positive about Donald Trump. Finally, we found one. Thanks, Roy. We appreciate it. He says, give Mr. Trump a break. He's doing a difficult job. In fact, he's doing the work of two men, Laurel and Hardy.
No, 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 no.
And I thought he was going to be positive. Snatched a disaster from the jaws of success. Never mind, eh? So I didn't actually get around to what Nigel Farage just said just recently.
I'm a nutcase.
I can't believe it, Nigel. So maybe I'll talk about him later on this evening.